In the September of 1997, American video game developer and publisher Mindscape released a PC game that helped define millions of people's childhoods. Not only for its free roam exploration, its joyful colour palette, or its quirky characters, of course all of those were still pivotal, but many people remember it so fondly because of its soundtrack. The game I'm talking about is Lego Island. I have many fond memories of the game's soundtrack and the extensive hours I spent exploring the island as a kid, so I decided to get in touch with the man who led the musical direction of the game.
Hi, my name is Lorin Nelson. I was the main person in charge of music on the Lego Island 1 project.
So sit back, relax, and get ready to return to the late 90s.
One of the greatest, most enjoyable times I ever had in my life with regard to any kind of work. Hell, I'd have done it for free.
This is a story about friendship, creativity, drowning houseboats, terrifying endings, and long-lasting influence. So let's start off with how Lorin became part of the Lego Island team. When did you first get told about the project and how did it come about?
Let's see, I met Wes and Kyle. There was a co-worker of mine who introduced me to them. That would have been about 2 years before, it would have been 94 or 95. When I first met them, we had started saying, oh, well, you know, we got to do something together because we all do stupid crap. And if we do stupid crap together, we could have more fun together. Wes had been with another company before Mindscape. He got hired by Mindscape to head up the Lego Island project. I think that, or at least to head up the story development and overall game outline for that. Wes had been employed by everybody from NASA to other people. I think he even did Disney for a while. He was a heavyweight in terms of story development, that kind of thing. So I found out about it as it was broken to Wes. Hey, I got a new job. It's for a company. They're going to do a Lego project. Guess what? Since we all worked together at the comedy radio show that we pre-recorded and then got aired on one of the local college stations. And it was a weekly thing. So we had done that, and a lot of it was music and storylines in comedic format and all that. Once he got employed by Mindscape, he said, okay, now they're ready to go into development stage, and so we need a lot of people to make some music. So we're going to put you in charge of that. So it was between myself, Wes, and Kyle. We went out and got all the musicians that we knew in the Bay Area involved in it.
So we know multiple musicians worked on the project, so let's hear what they have to say about it.
Hi, I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Henry.
And we worked on some of the music for Lego Island, notably Brick by Brick.
Every so often I Googled it and I found Brick by Brick, and I loved seeing what people thought the words were. And I can't quote any of it right now, but it was pretty funny.
Brick by brick, talk by tick, no matter how thin, no matter how thick.
What sort of brief were you given when that track came into fruition?
Not much. Wes was not a micromanager kind of guy, you know? Tended to say just, I just need some kind of a song for driving around the island, and sort of left it to us to figure out what that meant.
Oh, he explained the game, though.
He explained the game in a lot of detail, though, how the game worked and
building things with bricks and stuff.
Yeah. So Kathleen wrote the lyrics based on that. And I just said, this needs to be kind of a hyperactive kind of cartoon song type of thing with a lot of energy. So I wanted to have something that would just sort of make people bounce up and down a little bit. So I wanted to just make it a real happy, just driving kind of song. and still fit the mood of, you know, a game about playing with Legos.
Are you Game Boy? It's a riot, girl. Click on the stick.
Kathleen did a little voice work.
I did some
for him.
voiceover, yeah. That was pretty fun. I got to say, why don't you face it, we're lost.
Face it, you're lost.
I know there's an exit around here somewhere.
I've never forgotten that. And I was Nancy Nubbin, the tow truck driver.
Well, hey, good buddy. You want to try building a dune buggy? Check it out at the gas station.
Yellow and black. There ain't no doodad that Steve I slacks.
What were your inspirations musically at the time?
At the time, did we have our blues rock band?
Yeah, it would have been the Hurricanes then.
Yeah. Our musical influences in general are all over the map, but always pop, though, pretty much. I think I was in the Oakland Interfaith Gospel Choir at the time.
If you do it brick by brick.
And so Kathleen and I wrote the song. He also said he had a character, Mama, who had these little bits in the game where she would play piano. So he said, I need a bunch of piano things.
Nikki, nice of you to drop
Keep
by.
playing, Mama.
And so,
Can you play one?
well, I mean, it was interesting. It was much more of a challenge than I thought. It was like, it wasn't playing songs. It was playing riffs and just things, just little snippets. So, you know, I wound up, by the end, I was just doing things like just to have something to do. It was like, you know, Wes would challenge you to just sort of get way outside the box and come up with stuff.
I also spoke to David Barrows, who you might remember for this track.
When they're building the helicopter, my tune is playing, and that's the sort of more cool jazz tune. And then there was more of a up-tempo kind of car chase type sound.
What was your sort of inspiration for the piece as it was anyway?
I'd been kicking around that idea, really, the one that became the main helicopter theme. I'd been playing around with that idea in various forms since high school, really, and it started life as a tune called The Rise and Fall of Western Civilization, which was quite a sort of pretentious name, I suppose, but that idea really came from sort of cartoon music, and there was a guy called Carl Stalling who wrote a lot of the music for Warner Brothers cartoons, and later they put out a whole like double CD set of all this music they did for all the Bugs Bunny cartoons. So yeah, there was a piece in there that was kind of a bit of the inspiration for this tune, and also just like Dave Brubeck, Paul Desmond, kind of West Coast cool school kind of cool jazz type stuff, I would say. I did the whole thing in my home studio, and I guess by today's standards it was a bit of a primitive setup. At that time it was an ADAT slave to performer on an old Mac G3 and old Roland synths like a Roland XP10 and Juno 106 and machines like that. And yeah, so the sounds of the backing track probably came from the Roland XP10. And then I just recorded the output of that synth onto the ADAT. The MIDI information was recorded into Performer on the Mac, and then that would drive the synth, and then I laid sax tracks over that, is typically how I would work at that time. I was working on my own in my home studio, and really at the time I had no idea Lego Island was going to be a big thing. It was just, you know, I need some music for this game, can you produce a couple of tunes? And I did. I didn't spend a huge amount of time on it. I really just kind of tossed it off, to be honest. And, and then it became this thing. And, for years after that, kids have been contacting me via my website and sending me emails saying, this game was huge for me and I grew up on this game. And it became like a huge cult thing. And
well, how did that feel when you first started getting messages praising your tracks?
I was quite pleased, certain people, were telling me like how moved they were by that tune, and there were even kids learning the sax parts and stuff, and so I mean that was I was quite pleased, quite chuffed, as they say over here in the UK. It was a bit of a thrill to realize that it meant something to a lot of people, actually. So
that's very sweet that you've inspired kids to learn the saxophone.
Definitely, yes, it's inspired a generation.
What did you make of Lego Island when it came out then? Did you play the game at all?
I did play the game, yeah. I went through it and I knew other people who had it, and it was quite a thrill and just pretty cool to, hear my music in a game like that. And I think it was probably just quite a unique and creative game at the time. I think it was, quite innovative and quite different from anything else that had been seen up to that time.
To help paint a picture of the minds behind the game, Lorin has sent me some pictures of the Mindscape team at the time they were working on the project.
Oh yeah, here's one of everybody posing. I'm not even at that one, but it doesn't matter, I'm not on it. Wes is in the middle. And those were, a lot of these pictures you'll be getting are of mainly the people who were on the Mindscape team.
Was Wes the guy that had the circular glasses?
Yes.
Now, was the Infomaniac based on him?
Of course it was.
That's so cool.
Of course, we did preliminary recordings of all the voices and everything before the pro people came in to do them. And so Wes, of course, played the part of the Infomaniac on the voice parts, just because he had a funny little man voice that he used. It was
We gotta have this. Can't go without the shark. And what do we do if it's hot out there?
To understand how Lorin's creative flow originated, I wanted to know what brief the development team gave him. The answer he gave me couldn't have been cooler. When they asked you to make the music then, what sort of brief did they give you for it?
Well, not much at all. Not much at all. It's like, well, it'll be kind of funny, but we can't be too stupid and no dirty jokes. And so see what you can come up with. And that was about it. The whole thing always was by the seat of our pants. Always. We never knew what we were doing until it had been done. And then we're so like, oh, okay, that'll work.
It doesn't get much better than that, and it's interesting to have such freedom with a company that's so big. Although it's through Mindscape, it's still for Lego. I mean, that's a great privilege to have.
That's entirely unheard of now. Of course, the control would be completely restrictive. We were given a lot of freedom in that whole thing. It was a matter of all the Mindscape people would get together, meeting in Wes's living room. What we did was we spread out all this crap all over the floor, and we built the Lego Island set. And so we're going, okay, and then the Brickster is going to go here, and blah, blah, blah. And going, okay, here's point A, point B, blah, blah, blah. You'll see how it works. And they'd say, oh, here's the personality that you're going to be singing or playing at. Here are the attributes or the characteristics of that character. So make it work with that. Good luck. Give me 3. We might take 1. Thank you. That was it. Of course, we weren't always drinking beer and smoking pot, but often we were. For example, the photos I'll be sending you, they had to hide the beer bottles, okay?
So we know the musical brief was very free, but what musical influences were informing Lorin at the time he was making the soundtrack? And how did he go about producing the tracks?
The influences that I related to the most, at that time, a very strange release had been done by Robert Fripp, the guitarist for King Crimson, of all people. And it involved a lot of really famous people, some people who I had worked with, for example, in the Tubes, Peter Gabriel's band. Gabriel was involved. I was influenced by that release, which was entitled My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. And what the general concept of that was, they had taken recordings of real things happening, like real preachers preaching, or even conversations recorded in the walls of Robert Fripp's apartment with his neighbors arguing. So it was laying audio recordings of actual real events into time with music. And that is kind of what really inspired me to take the approach I did. And still, I just completely enjoy taking that approach. That, in my humble opinion, is still just epic, absolutely epic work.
So, when you were making the tracks then, what instruments were you using in terms of synthesizers?
Let's see, it was mainly a rack mount system. Back then, I couldn't generate any sounds from the computer. The only thing I used the computer for was the Cakewalk sequencing program. So I used 2 Yamaha TX81Zs. My keyboard controller was a Seal, spelled SIEL, DK100, which was an Italian off-brand synthesizer, but actually a very fat tone on it. 2 of the earliest sampling pieces of hardware in rack mounts. I think it was an early Roland sampler. Of course, real acoustic instruments were brought in on some of the recordings, but not on most of mine. Most of mine were all done on the MIDI setup in the computer. 3 synthesizers and 2 digital recording decks that I could create sound fonts with. They were one of the first means of creating digital sample instruments. So what I would have to do to make a sound font, say I get a trumpet sound font, I would have to get a recording of a trumpet or multiple recordings of a trumpet playing one note, and then I would have to take it from the bottom of the keyboard, say, I can stretch one note 3 semitones one way or another, and then I'd have to get the next note up, boink, boink, had to tune that. And so, you could, with sound fonts, you could do that. You could make an orchestra. You could make any kind of sound, which was the first in musical technology then. So I got right on that. So I was using sound fonts very heavily.
Lorin made many different variations of the soundtrack and a lot of tracks that didn't see the light of day. Before the game was finished, tragedy struck. Because of this, the only salvaged archival tracks outside of the Lego Island game are sourced from cassette tapes.
A lot of it is only on cassette, so that's all we've got. All the reel-to-reel and other content masters, with a few exceptions, are just gone. At the time the Lego project began, I lived in a town across the bay from San Francisco called Sausalito. I lived on a houseboat there. One of the best living experiences I ever had in my life. It's beautiful. You can't get one for less than $1 million now. I mean, it's that beautiful, and it's very unusual. It's unusual. They have docks going out into the bay, and they have houseboats built onto the docks, and that was what I was living in at the time. Unfortunately, when I was out of town for work, I used to travel a lot around the country for work. I came back and found that my houseboat had sunk. It had sprung a leak and sunk. So everything, every archive of all the music I had ever recorded in my damn life got destroyed. All my equipment, everything down to all my clothing, gone. I had nothing. Once the seawater hits it, kiss it goodbye, baby. I found out.
Oh no. That's gotta be soul destroying.
It was rough. I'll put it that way. You know, what can you do? What can you say? I said, all right, well, start over. And that's what I did. And I ended up on another houseboat. And I did stay in that community for a couple more years until finally the writing on the wall was becoming obvious. It was becoming too expensive. And I moved back over to San Francisco. But that's kind of the story of what happened to all the master tapes. At least the audio ones. They just got all eaten by the sea.
Somewhere in the bay, there could be a gem of distorted and mainly degraded Lego Island content.
Oh, all kinds of content beyond Lego Island. But yes, a lot of it did get destroyed. Much of it, of course, stayed with Mindscape and, went into the product. But as far as having archives of the recording sessions themselves on the original masters, nah, all gone.
Lorin has since released the content from the cassette tapes, which does include unreleased Lego Island music, and this got me wondering if there was any other unreleased content he could tell me about.
The dreadful endings are the ones that stand out the most to me because they were funny to us.
Those who played the game will know that there are two main endings. One where the player saves the island by catching the Brickster, the villain of the game, and another where the player fails and the island is overrun by this evil genius. A dreary marching band plays with some sort of death march, and the residents of the island weep in social turmoil. This ending was scary enough as a child when it was just 24 seconds long, let alone what Lorin tells me was originally planned for the game.
Actually, Paul Melmed, he was the consultant who actually worked with kids on the product testing. A really interesting guy, a PhD. All the meetings and interviews with children who were testing various parts of the project, so we could see maybe what would work with children of that age and what was, for example, not appropriate. Like everybody dying, okay.
It's mine, all mine. All mine. Mine?
Yes, but no, you can start over again. It's not that big a deal. Nobody dies, okay? I mean, we actually came up with endings that were dreadfully horrible. I think it was done more out of just a sense of humor with everybody than anything else. Everybody knew it's like, no, you can't do that. These kids, come on, it's kids. They're gonna run away screaming. We don't want that. We knew it was funny. A kid wouldn't know it was funny. You know, we were making fun of everything. No, you can't do that. Can't. And that's what Paul Melmed came back and told us. No, they won't know it's humor. They're going to think everybody dies. Get a clue, you idiots.
With all creases ironed out, the game released to critical success and became the USA's 11th best-selling computer game in 1997.
Obviously, I couldn't let it go to my head, but a lot of people were saying, "Oh, I grew up with your music." Blah, blah, blah. Come on. It's like we were just drinking beer and having fun. That's all it was.
But I think that's what makes the game so good, because it quite clearly isn't a very corporate kind of game. It is clearly made by people who are having fun.
Oh, we had such a good time, it should have been illegal. Of course, it all came from the minds of Wes Jenkins and his wife, Kyle Bogertman. They were the creative drive behind it. I'm not sure if you're aware, Wes passed away last year. That was a big deal. And I met them a few years before we got into this project. We became the best of friends. They're family to me, Lego Island was just one of many things we did together over many years, just completely having fun, going creatively crazy, and of course we had to do so within limitations on a children's software program. We knew it turned out real well. Of course it was highly recognized in the industry at the time, but we knew it was going to be fun just because we had so much fun making it, and so many talented people really did get involved into it.
With a warm reception like that, you'd expect the team's plans for a sequel to be kicked into immediate action, wouldn't you?
At the end, when the project came out and it got Best Game of the Year and everything, it's like we were all basking in the glory of it, and then we all got fired. So, yes. They didn't pursue it. We all did what we had to do. Okay, that one's over. We all got paid, and then we all got fired. We didn't get our royalties, so off we went to do other things. That's life.
Although a Lego Island 2 game was created, another developer, Silicon Dreams, took the reins, and Mindscape's plans for a more direct sequel were never materialized.
Well, I hear the second one came out fairly well. I've never played it or anything. I've run across it in some of the forums that are related to the project we did, and I see comments that I generally don't remark. I don't respond to, because it would probably be rude for me to say, "Hey, they stole that from me."
Despite this, the spirit of Lego Island lives on. The musical genre known as Vaporwave has latched on to its lo-fi and vintage sound design and aesthetic. You can often hear the soundtrack sampled in Vaporwave albums. I wondered if Lorin knew about this, and what he would think about his legacy living on.
These used samples from the actual game?
Yeah.
That's interesting, and many people would be annoyed by that. I'm not at all. I think it's great. It's cool. Like I said, I don't own that crap anymore. I sold it outright. And well, when I say crap, a lot of it was quite good.
Yeah, I was hoping you would say that. I don't think it's crap. I know what you mean.
Oh, no. I don't mean to demean the work that we did.
So there you have it. And for many years, that was the end of Mindscape's vision of Lego Island and Lorin Nelson's interpretation of its soundtrack. But then, 20 years after the original game was released...
Well, knock me over and call me deconstructed. If it isn't Pepper, the dude with the food. But where's Mama? Where's Papa? Where's Laura and Nick? And the racing and the jet skiing and the building and flying and watching and driving and having fun?
Aw, poor Pepper. Doesn't have an island to skate all over. Well, luckily you can help out. Project Island needs your help, programmers, modelers, artists, writers, voice actors, and more. If you have a skill in any of these, by all means, join our Discord or take a look at our website, and you might just land yourself a spot to help create Project Island.
Sign me up! I'm sending my application right now! One last question, though. When is that superstore opening? That's projectisland.org/apply. Go now!
Hi, I'm Floris. I'm the kind of fire starter on Project Island, and I do a lot of the music and design for the game. It was kind of me trying to get into making games, basically. I first intended it to be kind of a solo thing, just for fun. But I kind of found out when I was looking for some help that a lot of people were actually interested in this kind of thing. And that's how it kind of started, really.
And what was it about Lego Islands that interested you in the first place?
It was kind of my first game that I really felt kind of like it was a real adventure, basically. I always liked that sort of game, and Lego Island was really the one that kickstarted my interest for that. I think Lego Island is really quite special in just how wacky it is and how lovely people think it is, and still, it's just so charming.
So go on then, what's the game like so far?
We're kind of making it a huge toy box is the aim. Kind of like Lego Island 1 tried to do. So basically you got a lot of freedom in choosing what you want to do, getting new stuff to try out in the island. I think that will be really exciting. We're planning to do a little more than just Lego Island and expand the world a little bit. And also in Lego Island itself we'll have some more diverse regions.
The storyline, can we expect something similar to the other two, or is it going to be completely different?
Yeah, we are going to do a storyline. It's going to be a bit more full, I think, than the first one. But yeah, I can't really say a lot about it because it's too much spoilers probably.
I mean, I suppose everybody's sort of expecting a Brickster storyline.
Yeah, he'll absolutely do something.
So after all this time, Mindscape's vision for Lego Island and Lorin Nelson's vision for its soundtrack continues to inspire creativity in the next generation of game developers and musicians alike. Lego Island lives on. This documentary was produced and narrated by me, Joel Burkett. The contributors were Lorin Nelson, Kathleen and Henry Salvia, David Barrows and Floris from Project Island. You can find links to their own projects in the description of this video. If you enjoyed this, please consider following and subscribing to Burkett Media on YouTube, Twitter and Mixcloud. You can also find more documentaries at burkettmedia.com/listen.
I worked at an art center for a number of years, and they one of the summer classes was Lego filmmaking. And I remember telling them, I'm so-and-so, I'm Nancy Nevin, and I did Brick by Brick, and they were so young, they're like, so, what's that? What's Lego Island?
They're Philistines, they don't understand. They're too young to have played it.